Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. Over the next half an hour, we're going to bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have taken place around the world this week. But first up, a look at the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Sri Lanka on a historic visit. First Indian Prime Minister to visit the island nation in over 2.5 decades. Modi moots meeting of fishermen's group apart from signing 4 agreements. India lodges strong protest at an Islamabad court's order to release 2611 planner Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. Says Pakistan government must ensure Lakhvi stays behind bars. Ferguson police chief steps down after US Justice Department report indicts his force for widespread racial abuse. 2 police officers shot at in ensuing protests. 10 killed as choppers collide during the filming of a reality show in Argentina. 3 French Olympic medalists among those killed. Probe ordered to ascertain what caused the crash. And boxing fans gear up for the fight of the century. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao come face to face for a press conference ahead of their much anticipated bout on May 2nd. First up in the program, Prime Minister Narendra Modi began his much-anticipated visit to Sri Lanka on Friday with a grand ceremonial welcome, though only a modest set of agreements were signed after his talks with President Maithripala Sirisena. Unlike his previous stops in the Seychelles and Mauritius, where Indian ocean security cooperation and big-ticket development commitments were made, in Colombo, 4 MOUs on visa exemptions for official passport holders, customs cooperation, youth exchanges and education, and the construction of a university auditorium were announced. Prime Minister Modi also announced e-visa on arrival services for Sri Lankans and a $318 million line of credit to upgrade Sri Lanka's railways and a promise to build Trincomalee as a petroleum hub while seeking movement on the 500-megawatt Sampur Power project that has been delayed for years due to environmental concerns. Prime Minister Modi also referred to the contentious issue of fishing rights that has led to tensions between the 2 countries. He said it must be handled as a humanitarian concern. Meanwhile, Sirisena, who released 86 fishermen as a goodwill gesture a day ahead of the Prime Minister's visit, did not refer to the issue. Well, before reaching Sri Lanka, Prime Minister Modi visited 2 other Indian Ocean neighbours. Narendra Modi met the Mauritian President on Wednesday, a day after visiting Seychelles. Let's take a look now at what transpired during the Prime Minister's first and second leg of his 3-nation tour.
On his 2-day bilateral visit to Mauritius, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said both nations had shared interest in the Indian Ocean region. India pledged a concession line of credit of $500 million for civil infrastructure projects in Mauritius.
The outcomes and decisions today are truly significant. We discuss our shared interests in a safe and secure Indian Ocean and a stable and prosperous Indian Ocean region. We value the leadership by Mauritius in this area. Today, I was pleased to offer a concessional line of credit of $500 million for civil infrastructure projects for Mauritius.
Both countries signed 5 agreements on traditional medicine and homeopathy, cultural operation and ocean economy.
Today, we have offered support for construction of the 2nd cyber city. Our agreement today on the development of Agalega Island is a major stride in our cooperation in infrastructure sector.
In his joint statement with Modi, Mauritius Prime Minister Anirudh Jagannath spoke about India's assistance to Mauritius to improve connectivity with its southern islands.
India will assist Mauritius in developing itself into a state ocean economy. India will help Mauritius improve the connectivity with its outer islands with focus on the building and upgrading of sea and air transport facilities in Agalega.
Modi also attended the island's 47th National Day ceremony on Thursday, In tribute to iconic Indian freedom fighter Mahatma Gandhi and the memory of the Indian freedom struggle, Mauritius celebrates its National Day on the day the Dandi March started, that is, the 12th of March. Prime Minister Modi was the guest of honour and the chief guest on the occasion. Prior to visiting Mauritius, the Prime Minister was in Seychelles, from where he began on the first leg of his three-nation tour. Modi was the first Indian Prime Minister to travel to Seychelles in 33 years. The two countries signed 4 agreements, thus bolstering a strategic partnership with the Indian Ocean island nation. Prime Minister Modi also held talks with the Seychelles President, reiterating that the country is a vital partner in the Indian Ocean neighbourhood. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And joining me for a chat today to talk about Prime Minister Modi's three-nation tour is senior journalist Mr. Manoj Joshi. Manoj, thank you for joining me on the program. Let's talk about Prime Minister Modi's three-nation visit now. Are you happy with the outcome, or do you think much more could have been achieved?
I think given the fact that we have neglected this region for so long, I mean, say, this is the first visit of the Prime Minister in 28 years to Sri Lanka, and the first visit to Seychelles in 33 years.
Yes.
And the last time the Prime Minister went to Mauritius was, I think, 2005 or 2006. So in terms of the past neglect, I think this is a great improvement. And not only that, what has happened is that, as your newscast announced, that we have also putting down money, specifically lines of credit to countries like Mauritius and to Sri Lanka, because at the end of the day, it's not kind of declarations and statements that make a difference. What makes a difference is what we put down on the ground. And I think this first step has been taken, but I think we need to get our project management capabilities in order. The Ministry of External Affairs cannot handle these project management things. That's why you find that whether it is Myanmar or whether you find in Iran, in Chabahar, the projects we have committed to, they're not moving fast enough. So I think we need to address that issue. But leaving aside that, I think this is a great first step, and I think a very long overdue step. India, because China has sharply stepped up its game in the Indian Ocean.
Interesting that you brought up China. Was there an eye on China while these visits were taking place?
See, the thing is that, let's say, a country like Mauritius, we have been active there as players almost since the mid-70s. Likewise in Seychelles. Seychelles had a coup attempt in 1982. In fact, an Air India aircraft was involved. The mercenaries tried to hijack that. So we've been committed to those areas for a long time, because they are, after all, our oceanic neighbors. You see, but the thing is that in recent years, the last 4 or 5 years, what we are witnessing is that because of the dynamism of the Chinese economy, their search for resources, their requirement of shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean, they have established a major presence right across the Indian Ocean, in East Africa, in Mauritius, in Seychelles, in Maldives. In Maldives last year, the Xi Jinping and the Chinese defense minister made back-to-back visits, I think in September and November in 2014. Unfortunately, of course, this time Maldives was not part of the agenda for a separate, reason. But definitely, because China has raised the whole game, we need to also enhance our presence, establish our presence, consolidate our presence in the Indian Ocean region.
Indeed. Let's concentrate a little more on Sri Lanka now, because Sri Lanka is our immediate neighbor and really close to us. Just the Park Strait is in between us, of course. Now, Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe made a few comments a few weeks ago talking about how Indian fishermen will be shot at if they enter into Sri Lankan territory. That particular issue was taken up by India's External Affairs Minister. It was taken up again by the Prime Minister, but there was no reciprocation really from the Sri Lankan side as far as this issue is concerned. Is that a cause for concern?
I think it's a cause for concern, but I think India needs to understand the issue. The fault is on our side. Our fishermen have been encroaching into their waters. See, in Jaffna, because of the long civil war, the whole fishing industry was destroyed. So the Sri Lankan, I should say the Jaffna Tamil fishermen, they don't have many assets. But from this side, you have a lot of very aggressive fishing going on, and you have fishing of the kind which completely cleans out the bottom of the ocean. They use deep nets which touch the bottom of the ocean. So this is affecting the livelihood of fishermen on that side also. So I think we also need to understand that this is not something which can be done by chest thumping. Sri Lanka is our neighbor. Unfortunately, what happens is all this fishermen issue plays out in the politics of Tamil Nadu. And because it plays out there, we react in a kind of a nationalistic fashion. The issue is not a question of nationalism. All maritime boundaries are settled. There is no difference between us. We and Sri Lanka are neighbors. And we are very deep neighbors, meaning we have, after all, 1,200 Indian soldiers died fighting the LTTE, which eventually the Sri Lankans had to take on themselves. So I think this is an issue which needs to be settled in such a way that not only does it benefit communities on both sides, but also it acts to conserve fishing. If you're going to wipe out the fish stocks in that area, in 20 years, there'll be no livelihood left for anyone.
Indeed, indeed. Like you mentioned, India and Sri Lanka, there is a lot of history, the cultural and linguistic ties date back to several centuries, of course. But as far as other issues are concerned, maybe the ethnic issue, or for that matter, even Jaffna, the Prime Minister has decided to visit Jaffna this time around, which in itself is historic. But the ethnic issue also is a major concern between the two countries. Are you happy with what's happening as far as the ethnic issue is concerned? Do you think that the new administration in Sri Lanka can address that particular issue positively?
I think we need to make them understand that it is to their benefit. Meaning, peace in Sri Lanka is important for us, but it's far more important for the Sri Lankans themselves. So they need to address this issue. They had that long civil war. This whole thing has been going on for 50, 60 years, this ethnic divide in Sri Lanka. So they need to address this issue. They need to understand the aspirations of the Tamils in Sri Lanka. On top of that, they've just been, the Tamils now feel defeated and dejected after the end of the civil war. The Sri Lankan authorities need to make sure that there is no triumphalism. There is no triumph in defeating your own people. In a sense, in trying to show that your own people have been defeated, you actually have to. You have to have a win-win formula. And I think what the Prime Minister has given very wise words there, and the wise words I think which hold good not just for Sri Lanka, India, but also maybe for Nepal and as well, which is that devolution of powers, ethnic and religious and other identities need to feel secure. And one way of doing that is through a process of cooperative federalism.
Indeed.
That if you undertake the kind of federal route. But, in many of these countries, there is a strong centralist tendency. And that tends to override the interests of the minorities. So looking after the minorities is everyone's job in the region. It's not just India. India, we have to look after and we must foster our minorities. We have a process of doing that through our federalism. We have, several states, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland are all the Christian majority states. Jammu and Kashmir is a Muslim majority state. So we have processes of federalism. Likewise, I think it's important for the Sri Lankans to understand that they must make their Tamil minority feel secure and feel part of the national process.
Indeed.
It's their challenge.
Sure. All right. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Manoj Joshi, for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us and sharing your perspective as well. Moving on now, of course, meanwhile, there was worrying news from another neighbor. India summoned the Pakistan High Commissioner after an Islamabad court decided to immediately release Mumbai terror mastermind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. His detention was termed illegal by the Pakistan court, but India slammed Pakistan, saying that the verdict was extremely upsetting.
The Pakistan High Court has once again decided to release Mumbai terror mind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. The court has termed his detention illegal, granting him bail for the second time in just over a month. Earlier, the Pak Supreme Court has overturned the High Court decision to set Lakhvi free. India reacted strongly to the development. The centre slammed Pakistan, accusing it of failing to produce evidence against Lakhvi in the court. Pak High Commissioner Abdul Basit was summoned over the issue.
No, he may have been granted bail, but as you know, the trial continues and we're all working to complete the trial. So let the judicial process take its course.
It is the responsibility of the Pakistani government to ensure that all the legal measures are taken and he doesn't get out of jail. All the overwhelming evidences which clearly shows Lakhvi's role in conspiracy.
India has earlier adopted a resolution in Parliament against the release of Lakhvi from Pakistani jail. On Friday, Congress raised the issue of Lakhvi's bail in Rajya Sabha, claiming it to be a failure of the centre's foreign policy.
Sir, Mumbai हमले में 450 लोग मारे गए. If a criminal incident takes place inside the country, then the legal case should be in the country, inside the country, in the boundary of the Indian subcontinent.
Today at 10 o'clock, Lakhvi has been granted bail. How can we give notice? So I told him to give notice for today, tomorrow. There is anything which is very important. It cannot be raised in the House because notice has to be given by 10 o'clock.
According to the sources, the Pakistan government might detain Lakhvi under another public security order. The 30-day detention order will expire later this week. During the last month, Lakhvi's lawyers had challenged his fresh detention under maintenance of public order. With inputs from Kriti Mishra, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now. Still to come, we'll tell you all about a tragic crash that took the lives of 10 people, including 3 Olympic medalists. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama. Well, the filming of a reality TV show ended in tragedy as 10 people, including 3 French Olympic medalists, were killed in Argentina. The tragedy occurred when 2 helicopters collided mid-air during filming in northwestern Argentina. Members of the TV production team were among the victims as well. Here's more.
The burning wreckage of 2 helicopters that collided mid-air in the mountainous region of northwest Argentina. 8 French nationals and 2 Argentines on board were killed. 3 French Olympic heroes were among those killed. Yachtswoman Florence Arthur, Olympic swimmer Camille Muffat and Olympic boxer Alexis Vastine all died.
Forcément, aujourd'hui, une pensée pour ces 3 champions qui, hélas, ont fait un moment briller leur pays et aujourd'hui sont morts. Sont morts parce qu'ils voulaient, là encore.
The helicopters were reported to be heading towards a gorge near the town of Villa Castelli, about 1,200 kilometers from Buenos Aires. Reality TV show Dropped was to be filmed here. The show flies celebrities into rough terrain by helicopter and films their attempts to find food and shelter in natural habitats. The cause of the crash is yet unclear. Officials have said the weather conditions in the mountainous areas where the helicopters went down were good. Meanwhile, French broadcaster TF1 has said that the show will be postponed and the rest of the crew was returning home. This is not the first time that a reality TV show produced for the channel has been hit by tragedy. 2 years ago, a contestant died during the production of an adventure show filmed in Cambodia. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, after resisting calls to step down under the Ferguson investigation, the police chief, Tom Jackson, resigned on Wednesday. The decision came following a scathing US Justice Department report that found widespread racial abuses in the city's police department and municipal court. Tension prevailed in the town of Ferguson after 2 officers were shot during protests that ensued. 2 police officers in Ferguson, Missouri were shot early on Thursday in what officials called an ambush following months of acute tensions over relations between police and minority groups in the St. Louis suburb. 1 officer was shot in the face and 1 in the shoulder. Both were in a serious but stable condition. Police have taken 2 men and 1 woman into custody for questioning, but no arrests have been made.
This is really an ambush is what it is. I mean, you can't see it coming, you don't understand that it's going to happen, and you're basically defenseless from the fact that it is happening to you at the time.
The shootings came as a rally in front of the city's police headquarters was dispersing hours after the local police chief resigned in the wake of a scathing US Justice Department report finding his force was rife with racial bias. Ferguson's police department is almost entirely white, while the majority of the city's residents are African American. The US Attorney General said the shooting of the 2 police officers was a heinous assault that could undermine police reforms.
I unequivocally condemn these repugnant attacks. I know that all of us in the law enforcement family and all Americans are really across the country are praying for the safe recovery of those two officers. And I stand ready to offer the full investigative resources of the United States Department of Justice, the FBI, to solve this crime and to hold these perpetrators fully accountable.
The turmoil in Ferguson was triggered in August by the killing of an unarmed black teenager by a white policeman, thrusting the town into the center of an intense national debate over law enforcement's use of deadly force against minorities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Meanwhile, in an instance of extreme political partisanship, Republican senators made an unusual intervention by warning Iran against a nuclear deal with President Obama, saying it will last only till he remains in office. 47 Republican senators signed a letter stating that the Congress plays a vital role in ratifying international agreements. They said that the next president could revoke any such executive agreement. President Obama criticized the letter, accusing Republicans of interfering in ongoing nuclear talks. Fellow Democrats termed it a political stunt.
Time to undermine a commander-in-chief purely out of spite. We should always have a robust debate about foreign policy. But it's unprecedented for one political party to directly intervene in an international negotiation with the sole goal of embarrassing the President of the United States.
Well, much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week.
Likely Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton admitted that it would have been better if she had used a government email account and a separate mobile device as US Secretary of State. But she insisted that the vast majority of her correspondence went to employees using government addresses. Clinton has come under fire for her use of a private email account for official business when she served as the top US diplomat. She is facing accusations that she shielded important facts about her tenure from the public. An influential US senator has asked Pakistan to either hand over Mumbai attack mastermind Zakiur Rahman Lakhvi to India or present him to the International Criminal Court in The Hague for crimes against humanity. Chairman of the powerful US House Foreign Relations Committee, Ed Royce, also said certain families in Gulf states were funding 600 Deobandi schools in Pakistan. Iraqi forces have made significant advances into Tikrit on several fronts. Officials say they managed to force back Islamic State militants and gained control of the city. Soldiers and militiamen took areas and key sites in the north, south and west, including a police headquarters and a hospital. It is the biggest offensive against the Islamic State terrorists since the group captured large parts of the country last June.
Shifting gears now, it's time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's our sports wrap. Real Madrid reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League despite losing 4-3 to Schalke in a stunning match at the Bernabeu. Christian Fuchs opened the scoring for the visitors before Cristiano Ronaldo levelled things 4 minutes later. Then he equalized for a second time before the break after Klaas-Jan Huntelaar had prodded Schalke back in front. Karim Benzema scored an excellent individual goal to put the hosts in front on the night, but they were soon pegged back as Leroy Sane fired in from outside the box and Schalke went back in front with a superb second from Huntelaar. Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather came face-to-face for the first time since their May 2nd mega fight was announced as Hollywood rolled out the red carpet for the richest bout in history. The celebrated duo seemed almost subdued as they posed and chatted with media representatives who were recording their every move. The bout has been more than 5 years in the making and will take place in Las Vegas on May 2nd. A duel between the defense-minded Mayweather and the aggressive Pacquiao, the biggest draw cards of their generation, has been savoured by boxing fans. Two-time Tour de France winner Alberto Contador on Tuesday announced that he would extend his contract for a further year with the Tinkoff Saxo team. The Spaniard's current contract with the team expires at the end of this season, and there had been some indications that the 32-year-old was considering retirement. Contador is among the favourites for the 2015 Tour de France, which begins on July 4th in Utrecht. He previously won cycling's biggest prize in 2007 and 2009, as well as the Tour of Spain in 2008, 2012 and 2014, and the Tour of Italy in 2008. Moving on now, a look at what's creating a buzz in the world of show business. Here's our entertainment roundup.
Producers of the new James Bond film Spectre have announced their latest Bond girl, Mexican actress Stephanie Sigmund. Revealing the news on Twitter, they said she was joining the cast as a character called Estrella. Filming on the 24th Bond movie is currently taking place ahead of its release date in November 2015. Sigmund joins the likes of actress Monica Bellucci, Lea Seydoux and Naomi Harris on the film. Before this, she had appeared in movies such as Miss Bala and Pioneer. The release of a preliminary probe has revealed more details about Harrison Ford's plane crash. As per investigators, Ford's vintage World War II plane sustained substantial damage following a loss of engine power after taking off at Santa Monica Airport last week. The report reveals that once Ford, who was seriously injured, saw trouble, he alerted traffic control of an engine failure and requested an immediate return to the airport. The 72-year-old actress, who was hospitalized following the crash, is expected to make a full recovery. Johnny Depp got hurt on the location for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales in Australia. The 51-year-old actor has now been flown back to the US for surgery. He was not working at the time of his injury, but how he hurt himself has not been disclosed yet. The production is not expected to be impacted by the star's absence largely and will continue shooting scenes around Depp's character, Captain Jack Sparrow, for the next few weeks. The fifth film in the franchise had begun shooting last month and has been scheduled to release in July 2017. 50 Shades of Grey lead actors Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson reportedly want a 7-figure raise for the sequel to their hit erotica movie. According to the reports, Dornan and Johnson were each paid $250,000 for the first 50 Shades film, along with the box office bonuses. The first installment of the movie was a very basic franchise starter deal, just like Twilight and Hunger Games.
Well, there are many things spoken about marriage, but it is often said that working together and supporting each other are crucial for a successful union. Nowhere in the world of non-professional sport is this more perfectly illustrated than in the unique and demanding discipline of wife carrying. The 8th annual UK Wife Carrying Championships took place on a sunny spring morning in the sleepy town of Dorking, Surrey, southeast England. And I'm going to leave you this week with the visuals from the event. See you again next time.